The Suns and Deandre Ayton say they're all good. Everything's cool. Really? We'll talk about that. Plus, how good is the Miami Heat trade package really? And real or fake about Steph Curry? It's all right now on the Locked On NBA podcast.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to the Locked On NBA podcast. I want to thank you for making this show part of your daily routine. It's a free, fresh podcast about the NBA every day, Monday through Friday. Plus, the show is on YouTube. And on Wednesdays, I am one of your rotating hosts. Wednesdays, it's me, John Karalis, host of the Locked On Celtics podcast. You can find me on Twitter at John_Karalis.
And I'm Jake Madison, host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast. You can find me on Twitter. It's at NolaJake.
You know, if people are watching on YouTube, I look like I am podcasting from a closet. And Jake, you look like you're podcasting from the deck of your super yacht. So you got
I wish that's where I was.
You got the hair, you've got the sun in your eye. Like this is just, this is summer podcasting for you, man. This is great.
Look, I'm glad I have sleeves on then, I guess.
Should I take mine off? I'll just rip these off.
Can people handle that?
Yeah, we'll get to some. There's an interesting question debated on ESPN. We'll steal content ideas from other people. Was Steph Curry ever the best player in the NBA in any of his years? Am I the best at talking? That's a question. We'll do the Steph Curry stuff in the third segment. We'll talk about the Miami Heat trade package. The Miami Heat are constantly mentioned as big players in a lot of trade talks. How good is their trade package really? That's in the next segment. Let's start with DeAndre Ayton, Jake. And the Suns say we were always going to sign him, man. We knew that we were going to bring him back. I don't know what all this mess was about. And Ayton's like, yeah, this was cool. I'm happy. And when asked about why they didn't just give him the max, James Jones, the Phoenix general manager, said negotiations. Are you buying that the Phoenix, first of all, you buying that the Phoenix and Ayton relationship is all great now? And are you buying that negotiations are the reason that they lowballed him?
So to answer both of those, yes, for the most part, I think we could argue they didn't give him a full 5-year max because maybe Robert Sarver was being a little bit cheap and trying to save some money and almost letting, the market determine it to an extent. But that's not a bad thing, right? I don't think that that's a big deal to let just the market determine the player. And it's one of those things where, there's a little bit of rockiness with him and the team at the end of the season in that Game 7, disgusting loss to the Dallas Mavericks, him getting just benched. But it seems like everyone just kind of moved on from that. He said he gets generational wealth to help not just him and his immediate family, but generations down and others. So he can do everything he kind of wants. And he's still on a good team that's going to compete to go to the finals next year, right? You could have avoided some of this drama, but if they were constantly going to him and being like, we're going to match anything, and that seems like it was, this is fine, right? It seems like Phoenix didn't want to commit a 5-year deal to DeAndre Ayton. And if you're Ayton, you know what? That means you hit free agency sooner, and it's going to be a new TV deal in there, more money in the league. The salary cap's going up. So you're potentially actually going to get another contract that's worth more sooner. So it seems like everyone should just be happy about this. Yeah, maybe there were some hard feelings, but even in that interview that Ayton had, he says I get it's a business, and he doesn't seem too upset about this necessarily.
Yeah. And look, it's all about the approach. If you sit there and you say business is business, and I just got to deal with the fact that A, it's a business and this is what's going to happen sometimes, and B, I still get 130 some odd $1 million, minus your taxes and all your other stuff, but you're still getting generational wealth. Absolutely true. No one's going to cry for DeAndre Ayton. But I find this entire situation so fascinating because you have two competing thoughts here. One thought is Ayton is a cornerstone piece to the Phoenix's success. And when you have a player like that is very important. They called him critical to their success. If you consider him that, you just normally say, here's your max contract and we'll lock you up for 5 years. You're a young guy. At the end of the 5 years, you're still getting all of his best basketball. That's one side of it. The other side of it is, oh my God, they're giving a center, even though he's a good center, they're giving a center a ton of money. And yeah, he's working with Chris Paul right now, but Chris Paul is basically almost done. He's being held together with chicken wire.
Mhm.
When he's healthy, he's great, but he's not healthy often enough. And who's going to be their next point guard? Is that going to work? You need someone else to give him the ball and create. So on the other hand, that's a lot of money. And I can see maybe you shouldn't be paying a center that much money. So I can't figure out, you can have both sides making a strong argument. And so maybe that's why the Sun said, we'll just see what the market says. And if the market says you get a max contract, great. You're paid what people are willing to pay you and be done with it. But I still can't get over Rob Sarver. First of all, I think Rob Sarver is one of the worst owners in all of sports.
Yes,
I don't think
correct.
that's an unpopular opinion. He's terrible. He's consistently cheap. The team is under investigation because of horrible things that they've done. And on top of that, he just has done weird things with the goats and all that stuff from way, way back. So I never want to give Rob Sarver the benefit of the doubt. I think he certainly said, hey, let me save however many dollars I can save by, if you send him into free agency, even if he gets the max, it's a 4-year max and it's 5% raises versus a 5-year max and 8% raises. We're going to save all that money and I get to put it in my pocket. And I'll never give Rob Sarver the benefit of the doubt for doing that.
Yeah, that's fair, right? Like that's one part of that. That's why this isn't just immediately like, okay, everything's fine, right? Like I do think to a certain degree, as you made those arguments for a more traditional center that doesn't really launch a ton of threes, right? Yeah, maybe you don't want to give that dude a 5-year deal. 4 years is maybe a bit of a compromise. And so but it also could be because Sarver's cheap. Either this is just really good front office work, GMing by James Jones, or Sarver's cheap. Maybe it's a combination of both and just the stars align for it to kind of work out this way. So I think all of this can be true. I think something to also keep in mind with this is it still also gives the Phoenix Suns more flexibility. We've learned a lot, or a lot of people have finally learned a lot about designated rookie extensions, and you can't trade for 2 of those guys and have them on the same team. This deal for Ayton doesn't count as a designated rookie extension anymore. And that could have been a reason that Phoenix didn't want to give him a 5-year extension offer in the past, right? It just creates a little bit more flexibility for you, right? Like they took care of Devin Booker on the designated veteran extension, different than the rookie one, but they didn't cheap out and not pay him. This one just might be he's a center. Some of the market forces kind of align to not create the best situation for him to get that 5-year deal, but everyone still kind of ends up happy. And this Phoenix Suns team is still good. And come January, they can trade him. They can trade him to the Brooklyn Nets now, should they need to, in a Kevin Durant deal. But I think, one of the things I think gets overblown is they're going to have to make it right with Ayton. Dudes can get $130 million. He's going to be on a good team that wins, and that usually fixes everything. And now you can also go to him and almost say, we chose you over Kevin Durant, can't you? What does that say to him? That might be fudging it a little bit, but you can at least kind of go to him with that. That says something, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I think
such a lie, but
I think Ayton, players can say what they say. I think sometimes it's true. Sometimes it's true that they say, yeah, you know what, it's fine, it's cool. Whatever money I get, this is great, and I'm happy here, and I'm just happy here, and I'm over it. That certainly can be true. However, I just know that players have egos, tremendous egos that drive them and are a part of why they are as good as they are. The egos make them think that they're that good and give them the confidence to do some things that are amazing. So anytime an ego is bruised, it's still it's still something that needs to be addressed somehow. And it could very easily just be, hey, it is what it is. It's business, and it's nothing personal. And Rob, James Jones could put his arm around Ayton and be like, "Hey, look, I know that he's a jerk, and like I had to, my hands are tied." Like, Sarver's a expletive, and have a laugh about it and move on. But we've seen it happen before. Whenever a player goes out into restricted free agency and gets that offer sheet, Gordon Hayward is always brought up as the cautionary tale. The Utah Jazz said, "Go, fine. We're not sure about you. Let's let the market dictate." He signed the offer sheet with Charlotte. They came back and matched, and then he the first chance he got to leave, he left because he just never felt valued there, among other things. So you do run the risk if Ayton becomes a cornerstone, and he's part of why the Suns are still good after CP3 retires. And all of a sudden in a few years, they're like, "Hey, here's all your money." He'd be like, "You know what? We've already shown that I don't need to take all that money. I can take less, and I'm going to take less to go someplace that actually values me and not a place that has been playing games with me all this time."
You run that risk. You definitely run that risk. As you said, Hayward's a really good example of all of that. I also wonder, is this team so good that it's just they're going to win so much, they're going to have fun, they're going to be a really good team, and like no one's going to care in a little bit. But it might come down to, as you said, what happens to Chris Paul, who started to look old towards the end of last season, and that team started to show some more flaws than we were expecting. And I guess they'll get tested at some point this year, right? Like they're not going to win every single game. There's going to be a couple of losses where maybe it falls on the shoulders of a guy like DeAndre Ayton, right? And then you've got to wonder if they go on a 4 or 5 game losing streak. Is there some discontent there? Is there some concerns? And then do those narratives get brought up? Does that seem where there's maybe some cracks in the facade? So if that happens, when that happens, yeah, that could be when this really does start to get tested.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be a running theme, and I'm sure it's going to be covered on Locked On Suns. So make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Suns for a lot of this talk. We'll come back. We'll find out how good is the Miami Heat trade package that everyone seems to throw the Miami Heat into this mix for these big trades. But I'm not betting on Miami actually pulling any of these off. And I'm going to go to betonline.net. If you can bet on these things anywhere, it's going to be at betonline.net. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs, all your favorite sports events, and at the number one online source for odds, lines, and games. You can find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, all your combat sports, esports, even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head on over to BetOnline today. You can use your mobile device to do it, to learn about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Please gamble responsibly. Which NFL stars move the betting line the most starting this week? If you've missed it for the first couple of days, Locked On gives you the 50 most valuable players in the NFL from the odds makers at BetOnline. It started on July 18th. It's all on Locked On NFL. You can find Locked On NFL wherever you get your podcasts. You can even watch it on YouTube, where you can also watch us talk about the Miami Heat and their vaunted trade package. Oh my God, Jake. Everywhere we turn, the Miami Heat, they're prioritizing Kevin Durant over Donovan Mitchell. They have a choice. Let's see. Which apple do we want to pick? We're going to prioritize the Kevin Durant apple. And everyone brings up the Miami Heat, but what do they have to trade really and still be a good team? Because every trade package I hear just seems to casually say, well, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and picks. And when you're like, whoa, wait a second. Okay, Tyler Hero, who if he gets traded, he's extension eligible and could get a $25 million, I believe, extension per year, $25 million per year extension. And Duncan Robinson, who was just has been benched, is no longer in the rotation, did not participate. I watched the Celtics beat the Miami Heat in 7 games in the playoffs, and Duncan Robinson was like barely used. And Tyler Hero got hurt, but when he was on the floor, he was a nothing. He was certainly, his defensive issues are in question, but he is the 6th man of the year, and he is a tremendous shooter, and he does have some value. But Jake, how good is this trade package really?
Look, if you're including Bam Adebayo and things, it's good. But let's take, I know, I see your face. I know I'm breaking the rules here with all of that. Come on now. I just had to point that out there that, yeah, if he's in there, it's good. He's not in these, right? Like, they're not trying to trade for Kevin Durant and move Bam Adebayo, and that can't happen anyway, the designated rookie thing we were just talking about. The rest of it is not good compared to other teams out there. I can think of many, many teams that can offer a better package than the Miami Heat can. And certainly, as you said, right, you're trading for the option to pay Tyler Hero $25 million should you want to. He was 6th man of the year. That's not a starter. That's a lot of money to commit to that guy who at times was downright bad and non-existent in the playoffs. The Heat would happily give away Duncan Robinson. They were trying to give away Duncan Robinson this season and his $18 million that he's making. Let's not act like he's a plus in any sort of trade package. Right, like this is just them trying to do like Jedi mind tricks on you and be like, he's actually really good, and that's good value for
want
a shooter.
Defensive liability.
Yeah, like, and both of them are defensive liabilities here. You have guys like Max Strus and Gabe Vincent that were good for the Heat last year. And by the way, playing ahead of Duncan Robinson, but they've also been role players only, and they really only started to come on last season. And I don't know if I'm for sure going to be like, oh, they are starters, they are good. Maybe in another season we'll get there, right? So when you add all of that up, and they don't have any other first-round picks than their own, which are also partially owed to other teams, limiting some of what they can do there with the flexibility. No, the whole trade package sucks. It sucks unless you are just the biggest Tyler Hero person in the world. This is not that good. All of that said, it might not matter. It might not matter, right? This doesn't necessarily, Miami getting any of these big names on the trade market does not come down to their trade package. It comes down to how messy do those players want to make it to force their way to Miami. If Kevin Durant goes scorched earth, and he hasn't done that yet, he's going to get traded to Miami. You know, maybe not Donovan Mitchell. There might not be as much leverage there. But if Kevin Durant goes the Anthony Davis scorched earth route, he's going to end up on the Heat.
I get what you're saying. Stars go where they want to go. And when they say trade me to Miami, you trade them to Miami. But look, these are different situations. Kevin Durant is under contract for 4 years. And the Brooklyn Nets can simply say no. And it's not a situation where it's like, oh no, he's going to walk for nothing. And the Heat will find a way to clear their space and make their trades during the season and open up a roster. They'll find a way to get it done. So might as well get something rather than nothing. He's under contract for 4 years. So if he wants to play scorched earth, then hey, if I'm Sean Marks and I'm Joe Tsai, I say, fine. You want to play scorched earth? We'll send you home. And you can sit at home, and we'll pay you to do it. We'd rather pay you to sit at home. Actually, in fact, you can actually find a guy for playing the scorched earth. You can actually get into that and say, we're not dealing with this. You gotta work with us. You have to work with us. We'll get you out of here, but you can't just say, trade me here. That's not how this is going to work. If there's ever a time where a team can play hardball, this is the time. And it's because 2 things, Jake. 2. 1, the contract, like I just said. 2, the clock is ticking on KD. He's not getting any younger. So if he wants to go somewhere, he wants to go now. And if the Nets say, hey, we're going to sit you, that's time that he's never going to get that back. He's at the end of his career, at the end of his prime, and there's a real risk at any time between now and the near future of a precipitous drop or a catastrophic injury because of his age. You never know when the whole thing's going to go off a cliff for some reason. So he has it in his own interest to play ball with the Nets.
So that's your best point, I think, on that is you're right. I had thought of that, the age being a factor of maybe he just wants to get this done and make it easy and not play games. And that's why he's kind of leaving things open and he's going to try and make it easy on the Nets to a certain degree and not kind of blow it up as much. Right. But in terms of the contract stuff, we said the same about Harden in Houston. You know, they didn't have to trade him. He had 3 years left. He was like coming in on the first year of an extension with a player option at the end of it. And he still got dealt because, well, he showed up kind of out of shape, was really like half-assing things. And rather than deal with that with a young team, they're like, all right, it's time to just move on and we'll go from there. I do agree it's a little different here when it comes to Kevin Durant with some of that stuff. And then look at like the situation with Ben Simmons, right? You know, maybe that was just kind of the perfect confluence of events here to trade him for James Harden when that opportunity arose. But they did play hardball, though there were some other issues with that. I don't know if you can just send him home, though. The NBA might find you, the team, on that sort of thing and say you've got to play him, because they did that to New Orleans when Anthony Davis requested his trade and they were like, no, you're not going to play. And the league was like, well, no, he's healthy and he wants to play, so you got to play him. You know, it depends on maybe how messy the league wants to get this. But certainly, I mean, look, if it were that easy to send him to Miami, it would have happened by now. That's how unappealing their trade offer is, right? Like if you could have made this work, they would have. And no, if I were the Nets, I'd probably play hardball and be like, not a chance. I don't want to play Tyler Hero $25 million a season. That sounds terrible.
No,
you can commit like $40 million to him and Duncan Robinson.
No, God, no.
Right? That's awful sounding. Just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
There are other teams with better trade packages than the Miami Heat. And look, I mean, your team has a better trade package by far than the Miami.
Even if you don't include Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson in a trade, I think the Pelicans have a better trade package than the Miami Heat do, just to make it up with like a number of picks and things like that. And those Lakers picks could be insanely valuable in the future when you look at the dysfunction on that team. I just did that at my show today, today was, could the Pelicans get the number 1 overall pick from the Lakers? That's how valuable some of those picks are, I think.
Man. So, between that and like the New York Knicks, if we want to shift it to Donovan Mitchell real quick, the Knicks, there's a reason why everybody's talking about the Knicks. The Knicks have a valuable trade package only because they have the highest level of potential implosion. That's the other thing about the Miami package. Miami's going to be good. Miami was the number 1 seed this past season. Like people like, you can trade, if you're trading a couple of these role players and your picks, quote unquote, and whatever other else is in your package to get one of these 2 guys, you're going to be a really good team. You're going to be one of the top 2, 3, 4 seeds. You're going to be a good team. The Knicks, even if you get Donovan Mitchell, and side note, they might trade Julius Randle if they get Donovan Mitchell, they're still going to be a middle of the pack or worse team. Like, I just feel like the picks from the Knicks are going to be so much more valuable because that has a much higher level of potential implosion. The Heat just keep finding a way to stay good. I don't want their picks.
That's it, right? Like, so what you've seen a lot of these teams do when they end up trading away a superstar is they don't want the picks in the next couple of years. They try and push that literally as far out as you can. It's what the Pelicans did with those Lakers picks, right? Like, they didn't get the pick in the year after the Anthony Davis trade or even the year after that. They tried to push those so it outlives the contract that the player is on. Same for the Drew Holiday trade. Their picks were pushed further out. They haven't even started getting the Bucks picks really yet, right? And that trade happened 2-3 seasons ago. You try and push that as far out as possible, and the Heat did the same. The Rockets did the same thing with the Nets, so that you kind of outlive some of that stuff, and then that team has to go through a rebuild, and you get all their picks when they're kind of going into all of that. If there's one team I trust that is never going to have to deal with that, it's probably the Miami Heat. That's a team that you just don't see going through a rebuild. It's Miami. Players want to play there, right? People want to live there. The Knicks have a much higher level of implosion and not being able to get it right than the Miami Heat do. And that probably knocks down that Miami Heat trade package. That's an excellent point you made on that.
Oh, wow. An excellent point. All right. That's it. We're going to wrap up.
Right?
I finally
done.
I know if I talked long enough, eventually a good point was going to fall out of my face. So we got to that point. Let's just take a second here. And when we come back, we'll talk about Steph Curry. And I'll see if I can make another good point when we come back here on the Locked On NBA podcast. All right, welcome back to the Locked On NBA podcast. Let's get into our regular Wednesday thing that we do, and that's real or fake. So there was some debate, one of these debate shows on ESPN. There's that's all they do now. They show you 5 highlights, and then it's 23 hours of debate. So part of this was Steph Curry. You're the one who came up with this question. So why don't you set this up?
Yeah, I forget what show it was. I think it was Max Kellerman talking about this with Kendrick Perkins, which anyway, the question is, I did that as diplomatically as I could. The question basically was, has there ever been a year where Steph Curry, where you would call him the best player in basketball? Remember, he has 2 MVPs, 2 unanimous MVPs, 1 unanimous MVP to his name, right? Like in all this, but that has a lot to do with team success and different things. Is there ever a point where just he was the best player in basketball? So real or fake, in his time in the league, Steph Curry, at any point in time, whatever year you want to call it, has been unquestionably the best player in the NBA. So I guess this goes back to when he was drafted in the 2009-2010 season.
I'm going to say it's fake. I'm going to say that he was never the absolute best player in the league. But obviously, when you frame it that way, it does seem to be like, oh, well, why are you hating on Steph? I think he deserved his MVPs, and I do think there's a difference between most valuable player and the best player in the league.
Totally.
And so, and Steph is the best shooter of all time, and was obviously one of the 2 or 3 best players in the league. But we're talking about Steph's prime coincided with LeBron's prime, and Steph's prime coincided with Kevin Durant's prime and Kawhi Leonard's prime. And so even though Steph has changed the game, might be, the most influential player of this generation, we can say he might be the most influential player of this generation because of the way he's changed how people view shooting. And Steph was the first one to be pulling up from logos. And all of a sudden everybody was like, oh, wow, I didn't realize we were allowed to do that. I thought we were going to get benched. But in a world where LeBron existed and was obviously not just a great offensive player, but obviously one of the best defensive players in the world, and same with Kawhi, and same with KD. I still have to say that those were better players. If I was drafting a league, if I was drafting a team from the NBA during Steph's career, I never would have taken him first overall.
Yeah, that's kind of where I fall on it, right? Like, I think it's fake. I don't think he's ever been the best player in a single season. You could argue he's just as important as some of these other guys, but in terms of just pure talent, the shooting carries a lot of weight, right? And if he didn't have if he only had 90% of what he does, I don't think this would even be a question that makes you kind of think about it. You just outright go, no. And I wonder if it's just because people are players are just so talented, right? And multifaceted too, right? You mentioned some of the guys there, LeBron and Durant kind of being the top 2. You mentioned Kawhi. Giannis is also in here. And so has Jokic been too, right? We don't think we've ever seen a big man that passes like that. And Giannis is just the physical talents and attributes that dude has is insane, right? So how is Steph, a guard, supposed to kind of compete with some of that, right? The shooting carries him pretty far to make us at least think about it. But I think this is a type of question that's going to naturally go more towards wings to a certain degree, that are going to score, pass, rebound, and defend a little bit more just because of the position that they're asked to play. So this is maybe a little bit unfair to Steph Curry. There's some positional bias to a certain degree in it, maybe.
That's a good point. That's a good point for sure, because he's not asked to do all of these other things. And my argument when I'm saying the best basketball player, when it's LeBron, right, you're like, well, LeBron scores a ton, and he passes, and he rebounds, and he plays defense, and like all of that stuff adds up to, that's what makes him the best. So yeah, and that's why I don't necessarily like these subjective topics where
it's not a fair question at all, right? Like
it's always unfair, and you have to argue against a guy's greatness and say, well, he was never the best player in the league. Okay, so and like I acknowledge how fun it is to debate some of these things, and you always come up with, who's the best left-hander player of all time, and who's the best, power forward from the ACC of all. Like you do those things, and it's fun, and it's meaningless, and whatever. So I don't want to take myself too seriously, but at the same time, as a person whose job it is to kind of talk about this stuff and evaluate players, I do get uncomfortable making arguments against somebody's greatness when the reality is there's so much nuance to basketball that a guy who's as great as Steph Curry, I mean, again, I wouldn't have picked him first in a draft in the NBA. He'd probably have gone like second, third, fourth, fifth, somewhere. Depends on how many players, how many teams you like. He's one of. And if you said, hey, John, you have to start your franchise with Steph, I'd be like, cool.
Okay.
Like,
yeah,
okay.
This is great.
I mean, we want to flip this around a little bit. If you said, all right, John, you can't have any of those guys, you have to start your franchise with Steph. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is great, because you still have to build out a team, and you can do what the Warriors did. You build a team around that great shooting, and you maximize that. So it's his greatness is unquestioned. And
yeah, this is not a knock on him.
I know, but it always comes off as one, right? It always comes off as a knock.
It, right? It's also just one of those things where it's weird. Like sometimes you just have so many good players at once, and that's kind of what you're seeing. Like the one year that you could I think you could argue to a degree would be that 2015-2016 season. And like, I'm looking at it and I forgot how dominant he was in that MVP year, right? 30.1 points per game, 6.7 assists. He shot 45.4% from three on over 11 attempts per game, which is an insane volume number right there, right? Like, oh my God. It's like, yeah, it's just he's a guard, right? Like if he was an elite defender, we'd probably, he's not a bad defender, and he passes the ball. It's just not doing it on the same level as some of those other guys are. And it probably doesn't help that he played with Kevin Durant, and you'd argue that Durant was the better player on those teams. So it knocks him down a little bit too, right? Like when you're thinking about it and looking at it, it's an interesting question that a guy who, as you said, right, has arguably been the most influential player in this generation, hasn't ever been the actual like outright best, but that just more speaks to the talent level in the NBA than a knock on him.
I'm actually impressed that he had 5.5 rebounds a game that year. Like that's actually pretty interesting. I didn't realize it was that high, but yeah, but he always is getting in there for like 4 or 5 rebounds a game. Yeah, I think calling him the most influential player might actually be better than calling him the best player, because he's
a better legacy long term.
Yeah, like he's probably reason number one for the way shooting has evolved over the course of his career and influencing the kids. And everybody's like, oh, these kids, they're always trying to be Steph Curry. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with trying to emulate a great player. And look, as a person who will look at, like, I'll go to a youth basketball game and think these guys are too young to be shooting, and I kind of want to outlaw the 3-pointer below age 12 or something like that. But at the same time, the influence that he's had just across the board has
on
been
the current players too. I'd say,
absolutely.
like, you think he didn't influence Damian Lillard and Lillard taking some of those
100%.
deep threes that we've seen? Like, he absolutely did. That's that's an unbelievable thing to say, that you're influencing your current peers, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for guys that are currently in the league to look at what he's doing and suddenly say, "Oh, we're allowed to do that now? That's awesome." And that, because the logo shots are always something that would get somebody benched, that would pull them aside.
Get Nick Young out of the game here.
Yeah, absolutely. And even Steve Kerr, I remember him recently was some of the shot selection from these guys is questionable, but they're Steph and they're Clay. And he was talking about those guys in terms of, I have to live with some of the shots they decide to take because they're outrageous, but they fall. So there's nothing you can do about it. I'll never forget.
It works.
I forget the play, but it was Steph kind of just dribbling around, back to the basket, and he turned around and he flicked the shot, and Kerr did the, oh my God, are you kidding me that you shot that? And it went in, and he was just like, all right, all right, sure. I guess that's a good shot then.
I was at a Pels game one time as a fan. I have season tickets, so I go do the media thing beforehand, then I go sit in my season seats. And this guy behind me who was never there, they were playing the Warriors, and he's angry at Steph Curry, and he's like, "This dude's overrated." And I just kind of look behind him, being like, "What's wrong with you, man?" And he's like, "He can't create his own shot, can't do anything by himself." They switched Anthony Davis, this is how long ago it was, onto Steph Curry, and Steph launches a 35-foot three over an outstretched Anthony Davis, 7-footer with a crazy wingspan trying to defend it. And he just rainbows, the shot goes in. I just turned behind to look at that same dude. I go, is that not creating your own shot? Just launching this three over a guy who's got a 10-foot standing reach, jump and everything. What more do you want the guy to do here?
That's hilarious. So yeah, Steph's great. All right. But you know what this is? You know what this entire debate and conversation is? It's a July 20th conversation. Is what that
something
is.
Like that.
That's a July 20th. Well, what do we got out here? We got a show to do. Here's a topic. All right,
Thank you, ESPN.
Yeah. Well, we just spent 10 minutes on it. So, all right. And that's the show. We'll wrap it up there. I want to thank everybody for listening and for watching on YouTube. Very much appreciate you subscribing to the show. Again, free, fresh, daily for you, Monday through Friday. Rotating hosts Monday through Friday. So make sure you're tuning in for everybody's perspective on Wednesdays. I'm one of your co-hosts, John Karalis, host of the Locked On Celtics podcast. Find me on Twitter at John_Karalis.
And I'm Jake Madison, host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast. You can find me on Twitter. It's at NolaJake.
Make sure you're sharing the podcast. Tell your friends, tell everybody. They should be listening to and watching the Locked On NBA podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.